Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Popcorn Square podcast. I am your host, Neff, with
Kage
and
Buttons.
And we're back for 2025. So on this episode, we're going to talk about movies that we watched over the break, maybe discuss them a little bit, shows as well, what to expect in 2025, and things that we are most excited for in 2025. Then in the next episode, we'll continue some more of that 2025 conversation with films in January. But that is how we are opening up this year for our first episode. Movies watched over the break. Nosferatu, I know everybody here watched that film. Any others, ladies and gentlemen?
I did get a chance to watch some of the movies that I didn't get to see in theaters. So I kind of looked up and saw some older stuff that had came out earlier in the year, like The Watchers. Finally got a chance to watch that. Mm-hmm. I did watch Red 1 because that went to streaming on Prime pretty quickly because we know it didn't really perform that well in theaters. Right. So I got a chance to watch that as well. I continued to, binge through some of the other series that I was watching, TV shows and that. I think, though, I did watch a couple of the cheesy holiday movies, kind of like the Hallmark specials. Again, there's not really much to say about those. They are exactly, you take them at face value. It's, the same old story of, the busy woman or the busy man.
The romance angle.
Leaves the big city and goes back to the small hometown or, somehow gets trapped in the small hometown for the holidays and finds a romantic partner. And so, it's exactly what it is. It's just cheesy fluff. But, I think at the holidays people can forgive me for, enjoying a little bit of the cheesy fluff, especially after watching Nosferatu. That's definitely an intense movie and much, even The Watchers is a darker movie. So, going for that lighthearted element too of
balances everything out.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be depressed during the holidays.
Kage,
sure.
What'd you watch?
Aside from Nosferatu, what did I watch? So on the lighthearted end, I went and saw Moana 2 in theaters. I gotta say, I'm gonna give that a 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I can definitely tell there's an improvement in the animation, technology, because it's been a while since the original Moana. I give the original Moana a 8 out of 10.
Wow.
Just because
you said the songs weren't quite as
good. So when you go to watch Disney movies, the songs are a big part of the movies, whether it's animated or CG, whatever. And the songs were good, but I also felt like from a musical background, I feel like they were a little bit too technical than they needed to be. They started doing chorus stuff and kind of changing tempo and all that. And I just feel like the songs from the original Moana just had more flow,
Seemed a better fit for the story.
Yeah. But the overall, the movie was good. I won't spoil anything, but I will say it definitely opens up for another movie.
Yeah.
So I'll just leave it at that.
I want to say that I had heard, somebody had told me that originally the second and third Moana movies were supposed to be a TV show that they decided to make.
Originally, they were
instead.
going to be on Disney Plus.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, this is new. This is news to me. Well, that scene, funny enough, that basically leads to another film. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have seen it had I not seen the mid-credits scene. So I'll just throw that. Because the credits were hitting, and me and everyone else in the theater get up to walk out. Now, when I'm watching a Marvel movie, I know better. I sit through the entire credits. For a Disney movie, I didn't think about that. And we got up, and we were kind of going slow down the stairs, and all of a sudden I heard something, and I turned around, and I'm like, oh, there's a scene, and a bunch of us stopped and watched that. I'm like, oh, there's going to be a Moana 3. So that'll be something to look forward to. Aside from that, I did see some movies on travel while I was flying. I saw The Bagman. That was interesting. I'm not going to say it wasn't bad. It held my attention.
What is that? Was that released Was that a new release movie or
It did come out in 2024, but it didn't really get a lot of advertisement.
what's the genre for that?
It's horror.
Okay.
The Bagman. It's like a boy is told the legend of the Bagman, and he kind of doesn't take it seriously. And his
Like
dad,
a campfire story kind of.
yeah, and the dad gets mad. He goes, "No, you need to take this seriously." He goes, "Blah blah 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 blah," and he like kind of put the fear of God in this kid, and he grew up with psychology issues because of this. And spoiler alert, it's like it is something to be feared. It was definitely interesting. It held my attention. I kind of like those boogeyman horror stories, like a good ghost story. I think like Dead Silence is a good one. They tell the story of Mary Shaw who didn't have any kids, blah blah blah, and it's like throughout the film people start dying and seeing. It's like, okay, this isn't a story. This is like a real thing. Or like The Grudge, you hear about it, but
The Woman in Black.
The tooth.
Yeah.
Was it Tooth Fairy?
Tooth Fairy was decent too.
yeah. So it's in the vein of that. So I felt like that's worth a watch. Maybe a stream.
Another one, not to cut Kage off. If you guys haven't seen it on Hulu, Grim Cuddy. It's pretty
Cuddy.
decent.
Okay.
I think I told you about that. Watch that. It's
All right.
decent.
Give it a look.
I think it's the same girl from Prey that is starring in it.
Mm.
I
There
got to
is-
get her name, but yeah, she's in that. The cast is not like I guess you could say A-list, right? But the film is decent.
Okay.
I thought it was decent. A Hulu original, so it has
Oh,
that same
alright.
element of a
Nice.
boogeyman type element, but it focuses on. the
Okay, I
teenage
might
side
I
of
might
it.
give that a look. I guess the other thing I saw was I saw Sonic 2. So I saw the Sonic movie, the original one, and I saw the trailers coming out for the latest one.
Yeah,
with
the third
Shadow.
one came out.
Yeah, and I wanted to see it, but I'm like, no, I don't want to see it until I see the second. And so lucky for me, the second one was on the plane. So I was like, oh, let me watch this. And I was like, okay. I dig this. I feel like if I had, even though I don't have a kid, this is something that I could enjoy. It wasn't like an adult trying to sit through Paw Patrol or something. Like it actually had
Sonic
a good
is
story.
multi-generational.
Yeah, so I was like, that was entertaining. I guess the last thing I'll speak on is Dear Santa that I watched on Netflix.
Oh yeah,
Jack Black.
yeah.
Jack Black.
That one's an original for them, isn't it?
Not 100% sure.
Not 100% sure.
I don't think it was in theaters.
I don't think it was.
It was a good film. I enjoyed it. You can definitely tell it has Jack Black's humor
Signature.
in it, but because there's kids in it, it's not going full bore. I would say it almost kind of reminds me of
School of Rock?
School of Rock. It's in that vein, but because
love
it's
me
like
some
the
School of
devil,
Rock.
there's a little bit of that into it. If you've ever seen The Pick of Destiny, which is one of my favorite films of all time, it's stupid stoner humor. I'm not gonna lie about that. It is what it is. I don't do that stuff, but I can still laugh at it. But anyway, but yeah, that's what I saw over the break.
Very good, very good. We covered a lot there. Nosferatu, what'd you give that as a score, Buttons?
So, we right after watching this movie, I kind
Yes.
of wanted some time to digest
You actually
it.
said you wanted to watch it again.
Yes, because I feel like with this movie in particular, there's a lot to unpack with it. And, I could objectively give it a score just on my own personal taste, but I feel like that's unfair with this movie because there's a lot of other elements to take into account. You've got a lot of artistic style to this movie that really gives it a really great feeling when you're watching the movie. It puts you kind of in that atmosphere. And, a lot of the times with movies, they could be really well written or really well acted, but if there's something off visually with it, it doesn't hit the same. So I feel like this one is very immersive. It, the score of it, the tone of it, like the cinematography that lends to it, as well as the suspense that builds throughout the movie. It's very well done in that regard. I feel like the acting was really good. I am kind of nitpicky a little bit about some of the actors, but I won't go into that because I feel like that's my own personal bias, and I don't really think that me voicing it is fair, because I feel like there's not any one thing that I can pinpoint. It's more of just like a feeling, like a gut feeling. But otherwise, I think overall this movie is a 7.5 for me. That's kind of where it's sitting. It's great as far as visually speaking. I really enjoyed, the characters' involvement, and I loved the nods to the original. Because the original was a silent film, and so they had to work with imagery and the musical score that they overlaid over it, just to kind of give it its own aesthetic.
Correct.
And so I really feel like they really, when they sat down and were developing this, that they really wanted to try and pull in those older elements to make it feel like they pulled it back, from when it was done. I think was it the 30s, right?
The 20s,
Was it the 20s?
1923.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was the 20s or the 30s, but yeah, I feel like they wanted to pull as much of that same look and feel from that version into this version, but elevate it to where the Count looks really great. Like, he doesn't look like the original version, but in a good way. Like, I really Skarsgård, I think. Neff, you said he spent, I don't know how many hours in makeup and stuff before he...
Hours. And correction,
Right.
22.
It was 22. Okay.
1922.
Okay. But, I mean, he probably spent several hours getting into that costume, like Neff said, and, he goes out there and you wouldn't know it was him. There's only, like, little bits and pieces where you're like, oh, okay, I think I can kind of see and know that that's Skarsgård. But otherwise you're like, man, like, that's great, the way that they created
Like I
his
said,
character.
I attribute it to the same performance as Colin Farrell in The Penguin, where he has on the prosthetics and you don't even know it's him. 'Cause
Right.
He's just really acting his behind off. Bill Skarsgård did great in that film. Lily Rose Depp did all right. Aaron Taylor Johnson added some spice to that as well as a secondary character. Now, like I said to all of you guys about this film, while they do focus on the Hutters, right? It's well balanced to the point where even the Harding family has way more screen time than in the original 1922
Right.
film that I had watched. So it's
Bringing
interesting
that
how they brought
ensemble.
all that balance together to create an ensemble so that it's not so focused on that family, because in a modern time, there's only so much that you could actually focus on them. Also implementing the aspect of possession and demonic stuff. Like I said, that was a new twist. That wasn't in 1922. I do kind of like the 1922 a little more, only because it did focus on the vampire element.
Right.
Like I said,
Yeah.
I believe Robert Eggers added the new element because it's what the modern audience is used to seeing. It's easy to latch on to. We get those films, either it be paranormal, ghost films, possession films, at least 2 to 3 times a year. So it's just easy for the modern audience to
Right.
grasp onto that. But definitely an element that really wasn't prevalent in the first film there. And so the budget of this film was $50 million, and it is currently sitting at $139.8 million. My metric, 3X. That's not 3X. But depending on how the studio looks at this, and depending on the marketing, they could say, hey, well, we only put 20 million in, 25 million in. The film made its money, technically, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Based off that. Did it lose? No. But, hey.
Yeah.
So I think it's a success from that aspect, based off that budget. We talked about budget all the time here. It's very important. And Robert Eggers did his thing, as he usually does. If you guys have not seen another film from Robert Eggers, go watch The Lighthouse, one of my favorites, and Willem Dafoe is in that as well. Robert Pattinson, also he did The Northman.
Yeah, The Northman.
I don't know if that one did as well,
I'm
but
not
I heard it was a
positive.
decent film.
I watched The Northman.
What'd you think?
So it definitely has that same style that he goes for with most of his films, where it's like a psychological
Yep.
standpoint. I mean, this one you can see, especially like Lily Rose Depp's character, like she has like this, like almost descent into like a very heavy mental state by the end of the film. Like it starts off where, you know, she's just been married and everything's great, and then it's like, by the end of the film, like she's like going crazy basically, because she realizes, you know, what's happening and then what caused it and her role, you know, that she has to do going forward. So you kind of see her kind of go through a full cycle of, you know, denial, you know, anger, just like a weird delirious moment,
Into
and then like
acceptance.
acceptance, yeah, by the end of it. And so that range is great for this story.
Yes.
And so with the lighthouse, you see very similar elements of like sanity and insanity, and you know, basically toying through dreams or hallucinations, or you know, any other psychological really
Correct.
elements of that where you're like, oh, they're showing this descent into madness, or this idea of
Through the progressions of the
right,
film.
right, exactly. So Northman has that as well, although some of it, you know, could be partially attributed to some drug use, but it does also show like some very hallucinogenic
Shows
type
elements of
movement.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I gave Nosferatu an 8. About halfway through the film, it was sitting at a 76, 77. But I do like how they wrapped it up. The only thing that I would have liked to seen is them actually destroying Count Orlok's castle. I mean, that would have been a real nod to the original. But they left
Holy
that
crap.
scene out. It is what it is. Didn't dislike the movie, and I recommend it. Also did a review on that on The Weekly. But let's hear Kage's thoughts on Nosferatu.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Neff on this one. I also gave it an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I didn't really know much going into it, I'll be honest, but that was kind of on purpose. All we have to go on is the silent film, and I won't lie to you folks, I have not seen the silent film, but I do know that Nosferatu is one of the most famous movie characters at all time. Even if you've never seen the silent film, everybody knows that's the silent film vampire movie and such. And so I went into it seeing one trailer, I think, prior to going to see it. I knew about who played Bill Skarsgård. Like, I knew about that, and that was all I knew. And then I knew about William Dafoe when I saw the first trailer. But overall, though, I really like how it was shot. The cinematography, I think, is something that stuck out with me in particular. Because the original movie was in black and white. And so the happy medium, I think, for shooting this was they didn't give us a black and white film, but it was very desaturated.
Desaturated, color graded with that dark blue.
Yeah, it wasn't black. It wasn't black and white, but it was like dark blue. Everything, all the colors were pretty muted. You know what I mean? And it was shot, not like The Crow where it's all shot at night, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's definitely certain elements to it that even like after Nicholas Hoult character has gone off to meet with the Count, like there's a couple of scenes on the beach and the weather is even, you know, dreary and stuff.
Very gloomy.
Yeah, they kept it.
Yeah.
They kept it consistent. I want to say.
It's a whole tone and a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the scenes that they showed, like when they're visiting the professor for the first time, you know, like, and he's like, they go in there and they're like, man, he lost his mind,
Yeah.
like, you know, and then he goes up to him and he's kind of talking to him, the doctor's talking to him, and he's like kind of all of a sudden just kind of snaps out of it. But all of those little elements that they threw in there, again, like what Kage is saying, they kind of set the tone of and it gives it like that darkness.
The tone is the
without-
strongest
Yeah.
aspect of this film for me. My two favorite scenes were was obviously Thomas Hutter, Nicholas Hoult's character, actually trying to make his way past the Transylvanians after being warned about Count Orlok, and as the horses come to get him in the carriage. That whole sequence was amazing.
I actually
Just
love how they
from,
messed with him.
Yeah, exactly. Just from a standpoint of cinematography there.
Yeah.
And then obviously the end when the sun rises and you have the end of the film there, Count Orlok
There's
ends up dying. But those are my two favorite scenes of that film. What do you got, Kage?
Yeah, I was Yeah, I don't want to go. I don't want to go too much into scenes because I encourage everybody out there to go give it a watch.
Yep.
I think this is a good time. It's definitely different. It stands out. I want to say in 2024's film offerings. Yeah, I mean that's all I can say. Like no actor like overacted. Nothing was cheesy. I don't think there's like cheesy lines. Like everything just had really good flow. It kept that tone, that ominous feeling that something is going to happen at any moment. And these characters are. You need to watch your back. Always watch the shadows and watch for people that are working for that are supporting. Like the vampire and everything. It's very dark like that. I'd say my only complaint, and this is a laughable one, was I was like the mustache.
Oh yeah.
His
That's
mustache.
just it's not a deal breaker for me. It's not a deal breaker for me because
It's a whole look.
yeah,
It's a
because
modern vibe.
you're
Yeah.
watching it. You're watching it,
He should have
and
curled the ends.
it's always silhouettes. It's silhouettes of him or a shadow of him, and eventually you do get to see the full face and stuff. And you're like, in my head, I'm thinking, is it just going to be a bald, tall white guy with like pale skin and like claws, and he's going to look sickly?
Like
you
the
know,
original?
like yeah, that's what I kind of thought. I thought they were going to kind of put a modern spin. Don't get me wrong, they did put a modern spin, but I was not expecting the mustache. You know, I was like, so that's just a minor complaint on my part. It didn't ruin the movie for me, but I was like, the whole time I'm watching the movie, I'm like, just shave that thing, just take it off.
In some ways, though, like if you think about the time period that they're portraying, it would have been unusual for somebody of his station to not have facial hair.
You think?
Oh, absolutely. It would have been I mean, think about the other characters in the movie. I mean, I guess because it's supposed to be what 1800s that it's done. So I mean, having facial hair would have been like a status symbol because you need to keep it groomed, and the only way you're going to keep it groomed is if you can afford the shaving. You know, like special barber. You know, go and shave it and beard oil or
Yeah.
or wax, mustache wax and stuff like that. Like all of that would have like been very much like a whole status thing. So I
Okay.
feel like that's probably
I didn't-
why
I
they
mean,
gave
Interesting
him-
I
angle
didn't-
to look at.
yeah, I
Th-
feel like
okay,
that's probably why they
that's-
would have given him the mustache because it would have been like a huge, like,
All right, I never. Well, that never crossed my mind. That's definitely interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah,
I
'cause
definitely.
If you look at Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, he's like of prominence,
yes,
and he's got the full on beard with the curl.
right.
Well, yeah, when
Right,
you're
'cause he's
rich.
very well groomed.
Okay,
And that's
I-
one
Very
thing.
well
I love the
groomed, yeah.
two other things I liked about this movie as well. Like I said, the tone was the most important aspect to me, and I
Yes.
thought it was the best aspect of the film. But the wardrobes are on point, and the score.
The score was
Score,
very nice.
yeah.
It
Score
wasn't
is
in
very
your face,
important.
very subtle,
Yeah.
but when it needed to be there, it was present.
Right.
So that's what I liked about it. But all the wardrobes were amazing. Like I said in my review on the weekly, everything looked like it had its place, and it didn't look out of place. Yeah, it looks like Germany in the 1890s probably would have looked. I wasn't like, oh, that looks kind of weird. Like,
Yeah.
no,
I wouldn't be
this was
surprised
set
if this
up
movie
great.
didn't get a nominated for either cinematography.
I don't know if it made the
or,
deadline.
Oh, okay. So
There's
it
like a
might not.
cutoff.
Oh, is
But
okay.
if there wasn't a cutoff,
Yeah, I could see it getting nominated for
I thought the
costume.
wardrobe was great.
Right, yeah, and
every time
cinematography
Aaron
for
Taylor
sure.
Johnson was on screen, it's like, wow, he's sharp. Like, you know what I mean? It just looked like, okay.
Well, Lily Rose Depp's
Hers was
and,
great,
and
but once
the
again,
friend,
and
all of their
oh yeah,
outfits
yeah.
were
But I
very
mean,
nice.
just a different level of to to me, it reminded me of those portraits you see of like George Washington. Like it was
okay.
like
Okay.
that. Like
stately.
yeah, when you saw Aaron Taylor Johnson's character and everybody else had the same vibe, but him specifically, it like really stood out.
Right.
And like I said, they really balanced all those characters a lot more than in the original, because really in the original, it's really focused primarily on that Hutter family. You
Right.
do have your other characters floating around, but this one I noticed was
Well,
way more balanced.
and
And it
the
almost, you could
changes-
argue, it's like, wow, the Harding family, you could say, is arguably the centerpiece of the film too.
Right.
You know what I mean? There was another film like that we talked about where it was like super well balanced. It's like, wow, like everybody's kind of doing their thing here. So the movie was good. Everybody liked it here. 2 thumbs up. Go watch Nosferatu.
Yeah, go check it out.
Shows. I watched Squid Game. It's
So-
cool. I don't think it's better than the first season, but not a bad season. I know Rotten Tomatoes has it at a score of 63% from the audience. I think that score is a little low. I give it at least a 7. First 2 episodes, fluff, right? Get you reacclimated with the scenery, the characters, what's going to happen. And then once we get into the game, things ensue there. There's some new elements, new characters, obviously. And so I thought it was decent. I wonder what's going to happen in season 3. I wonder how many episodes it's going to be. I believe Squid Game season 2 was 7 episodes, ladies and gentlemen. So yes, it can be watched in one sitting if you like Squid Game that much. But I recommend it if you like Squid Game. A lot of promo has gone into it, a lot of marketing on it. You know
yeah.
what I mean? And so
Well,
I
it
do
was
think
a-
it was a decent follow-up. Buttons, what do you got?
I was just gonna say, like, in terms of the Squid Game, I mean, it kind of came out of left field. You know, Netflix has thrown over the last, gosh, I guess maybe about a decade now, a lot more international content on, you know, its streaming service. So, you know, the fact that this show in particular, when the first season came out, blew up so much, it kind of shows that, you know, viewers are willing to give like these international shows and films a chance, and really, you know, when you're able to latch on to a show like this. Now, most people probably watched the dubbed version. Obviously, they would also have a subtitled version if you wanted to watch and listen to the original actors' voices. Some people, you know, prefer that. Other people are like, no, I only can do dubbed versions because they don't want to have to read while trying to also watch the show. So my point being with Squid Game is I think it's great that, especially growing up in the 90s, you watch like really badly dubbed movies from overseas, like the Jackie Chan movies.
Yeah, I'm glad you
And-
brought that up. Squid Game is one of the better dubbed shows.
Exactly. It
Unless you're really nitpicking on the lip movement,
right.
you can't
And that's
really
what I'm
tell.
saying is they're getting better quality, and I think that's what Netflix is really trying to make sure when they bring in those international shows is that the dub version, the quality of it is just as good as if you were watching and listening to the original audio. They're trying to make that investment that the voice actors are just as good
Solid
as
work.
yeah, like they make
Helps it transition over to America as
Exactly.
well. Didn't
and
watch it
remain
yet,
engaging. I have not watched the
but you
second
are
season.
watching what?
Oh gosh, goodness
Let's
gracious!
keep that list
like,
short though, because we
yeah.
gotta talk about 2025
Yeah,
stuff
I
too.
would
But
say-
let's talk about 2 big ones you're watching.
Okay, so they had come out with the second season of The Rig. That's an Amazon one. So, and I did finish. You know, I have so many shows that I'm like in the process of. I did finally finish up the latest season of Demon Slayer. So I mean, The Rig, Demon Slayer. I mean, I won't go too far into it because I am trying to like catch up before we start this year's new releases, because we actually have quite a few releasing in January TV show wise, and early in the year. So I'm trying to catch up on some of these shows. But yeah, I would say over the break mainly those were the 2 big shows that I was trying to get through, along with just some older shows as well.
Kage, any shows? If not, that's fine. But have you seen anything as far as shows on streaming?
I didn't really watch too many shows, to be honest. Been a pretty busy holiday season for me. I'd say the thing I watched most recently was I finished watching the Persona 5, the animation, on Crunchyroll. So for those that don't know, that's an anime based on the Persona 5 game that I played last year. It is one of my favorite games of all time. So the fact that they made an animation of it, and the animation it looks like it's pulled out of straight up cutscenes from the game, right? But then of course it has scenes that are all fleshed out and stuff. But they pulled a lot of I watched it in Japanese with English subtitles. They pulled a lot of the Japanese voice actors from the game to the show. And so when you're
great.
playing the game, you're making decisions that are changing the impact, changing the story and stuff. Whereas this time you're watching it play out, but you're like, I didn't make those choices. What is the character going to do.
Correct.
And so you get to see those differences. So that's where the entertainment comes in for me. But I watched it. It was very well done. If you're not a gamer, but you're interested in gaming stories, this is a way to do it. I found out there's a lot of animes based on video games. So if you don't want to play the game, but you want to still experience that story, this is the way to do it. So I encourage everyone to go out there and check it out.
Interesting. Also, Solo Leveling Season 2 is out right now on Crunchyroll, and I've heard good things about that. So if
that's
you're into
that's
the
going to be
anime
my
side-
next one.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I've heard great things.
All right,
Also-
we're going to continue with Kage here.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about 2025, ladies and gentlemen. What are you guys expecting from this year? And what are you excited for?
All right. Well, I will just say right off the bat, 2025 overall seems a little light. There are some gems in there, some diamonds in the rough, so to speak, that are gonna really be a must go. Number one, Neff's smiling right now, folks. You can't see it, but he knows I'm gonna mention it. Is 28 Years Later. That is hands down the biggest film of 2025. I am a huge fan of 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later. I was really invested in that, and for those that don't know or haven't seen it in a long time, 28 Weeks Later, it kind of has a little alluding to a new film.
Right.
Unfortunately, years went by and they just never did it. We were supposed to get it 28 months later and it just fell through. And so out of nowhere, we get this announcement, hey, we're just going to do 28 years later. And it's like, okay, how has the rage virus evolved? How have these people evolved? Are there anybody left from when we last saw? So we're going to find out. The trailer, there's only one trailer out, but I think it's perfect. You don't need to show me anything else. I don't want any spoilers in the story. That little trailer is very short and sweet and effective. You have me. Let's go. That's a day one for me. Aside from that, I do got a few movies here. I know not necessarily in order, but Tron Ares, that's coming out in 2025. I'm not a diehard Tron fan, but I really enjoyed the first two, and I think, I saw the other two in theater in IMAX. Why not just complete the trilogy and go finish this one off and go see it? The Megan 2.0, I enjoyed Megan. It was different. We have AI movies, AI gone rogue, Terminator, Matrix, for example, but this kind of put a slightly different spin on it, and I think it being different is what drew me to it. So I'm interested to see that story continue. And then of course Avatar 3, that's gonna be coming out in October of 2025. Again, much like Ares, I'm not a super diehard Avatar fan, but
But it'll make a big splash, I'm sure. It'll be a big movie.
well, the second one made a big splash because that was about water.
This one's fire, all right? Okay, yeah, this one's fire.
Sorry, I had to say
it. Honestly, the way they're doing it is it's kind of like, okay, they already had earthbenders, and then they had the waterbenders, now they're gonna have the fire
different
benders.
Avatar. How dare you? No.
And I'm sure the last one will be air.
Well,
I mean, unless you want to maybe say that the first one was air because they had, the whole flying,
I mean,
whatever they're
honestly,
called. I don't remember what those
that's a
things are called.
pretty good point. That's a pretty good point.
There was quite a few areas. I mean, they had the moving.
Yeah.
things and-
The floating mountains
of
of Pandora. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe you could say it's a mix between earth and air, but who knows, right?
Yeah, so I'm excited to see how this goes. I did see a little bit more information about it today because what I can say is that the first movie is like the Na'vi people against the humans coming to take their resources, blah, 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 where the second movie is more focused on the Na'vi and focused on kind of inner beef squabbles, so to speak, and they have to find their way. Jake Sully and his family, his Na'vi family now, have to find a new place to live and a new way of life. And this is going to be talking about a new tribe, and their whole culture is based around fire, whereas the last movie, their whole culture was based around water. And they actually have different bodies actually.
Yeah, the red Navi.
Yeah, the red Navi.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
I'm
they kind of
interested.
show like how each one of the tribes are, genetically,
Because they have like webbed feet
Unique.
and tails
yeah,
in the water
they've
one.
been, kind of like, what were we talking about? Like Darwin's Islands with the Canary Islands with the birds, where the different beak sizes because of where they live in
Correct. The
in-
region.
Yeah, well, the canopies of the trees and stuff. So they have just different features based off of that. They're
Correct.
like they're all the same bird, but there's have I can't remember the exact word, but basically evolved to
To fit their environment.
yes.
Yeah. So I
Make it habitable.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just interested to see how that goes. And I'll throw a wild card out there. I'm mildly curious about Wolfman. That
Out now, folks.
I want to. I kind of want to see that, but I'm not like gunning to see it. I feel like that's something I could
Decent
wait for
stream,
on
yeah.
stream. Yeah.
Good. Buttons. You have quite the list.
So
Let's hear it.
what I started to do, was go through what everything is releasing, and I can tell you right now, I pretty much filled up a page and only got to maybe September. So,
Wow.
and
Yeah,
some of
there's
these
definitely no shortage of releases.
Yeah,
it's
there's a
just what are we
ton.
going to be gunning to watch?
exactly, and this is kind of what I agree with Kage in the sense of it's not that it seems like slim pickings because there's tons of content out there that they're going to release this year. The problem is narrowing it down to shows, movies in this case, that are actually going to be ones that you would want to see in theaters. Like you're so excited and the quality looks so great and the story and everything that you're actually like, yeah, this I want to see in theaters. Because a lot of these, to me, I've tried to go through and start watching trailers, and I'm like, stream.
Yeah.
Not interested. Stream. Maybe theaters. Maybe. You know what I mean? And so, for me, some of the standout ones, Mickey 17. It looks like they're doing quite a bit of, promo work on this one now. Like this was supposed to be released last year, and I was actually excited for it last year, and it got pushed, and then it got pushed again. So now it's got a March release. So that one's looking good to me. I'm low key excited about How to Train Your Dragon, the live action one that they're doing. So I've seen the initial trailer. Like I said, I'm like on the fence about it because I'm like, on the one hand, I loved the animated series that they did. I even watched the shows that they did.
Wow.
So it could either be really, really great or really awful. So I'm hoping that it's great. But there's also some other ones like Black Bag, I know we mentioned, saw the preview for that during Nosferatu, and it piqued my interest. Some of the other ones that will probably come out later in the year, like The Accountant 2 is going to be coming out. It seems like there's so many sequels. One that I'm excited about that isn't a sequel is The Amateur. And that one has...
I don't know his name, but I know the
gosh.
face.
Yes, exactly.
I think his last name starts with an R.
Raimi or something like
Something
that.
to that effect. Kage, can you look him up
Actually,
real quick
that
on
might be
Google while
his
she's...
first name. His first name might be Raimi. He did
familiar.
anyway. He was the.
What's
he's
I'm
been in
sorry.
a
What's his
bunch of-
name again?
I think it's Raimi. Something.
No, what the name of the
The Amateur.
Oh, The Amateur. Yes. He did. He
was in
Bohemian,
007,
He did
Bohemian
the Bohemian
Rhapsody.
He was
Played
also.
Freddie Mercury, yeah.
He was Moon Knight.
He's been
on
in
Disney
quite a
Plus.
stuff.
He was the main character for that. So he's.
Oh,
Did you find him?
Rami Malek.
So his first name's Raimi. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, that one is him, and he plays like he's seeking revenge, but he's like, I'm not physically strong, but I'm mentally strong.
Mm-hmm.
And so this whole movie looks like he's getting his vengeance, his revenge by using his mind to like mess with the people who, he needs to get his revenge against. So it looks very interesting, called The Amateur, set to come out in April. That's one that I'm definitely looking forward to. We have the Final Reckoning Mission Impossible movie. That's going to come out in May. They're also doing a
gonna be our
live
first
action
May
Lilo and
blockbuster.
Stitch May.
That's
don't
probably gonna do
know.
numbers.
Yeah, I don't know how that one's gonna go. Again, it's one of those things that Disney, again, is gonna be putting out more live action stuff.
Yeah.
We're seeing DreamWorks do it now too, so I mean, hopefully, I even think they talked about doing the live action Moana this year too, so, I don't know how that'll work out, but, with the second one, Sinners looks this is also a vampire movie.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan, yes, and he's collaborating, the director, he's done a couple other movies with the same director, I believe, and so this is another collaboration with him, with Michael B. Jordan, and at first, when I heard about the movie, I thought it was gonna be something completely different than what it was. I had just seen some still images from, set and things like that, and I was like, oh, and then I was talking to a coworker and they were like, no, it's vampires. And I was like, huh? So I finally tracked down a trailer for this and I was like, oh man, this actually looks really good. So I have some high hopes for that one, especially because I like that it's not a sequel. It's something original now. It's like, oh, let's see how this goes. I believe it is based off of something, but I mean, as far as all the rest of his movies, it's not a direct sequel of something else that's already come out.
Right.
So great. There. Now, all these other movies that I have on here, Love Hurts. That one's coming out in February. That one, to me, action comedies are like my thing. I love me some action comedies. And there's actually a lot of action movies coming out this year. And it's sad when we talk about last year, a lot of the action comedies, they usually don't make money. It's not everybody loves to go, see action comedies in the early 2000s. Those were like very popular, but it feels like nowadays people are, we'll just stream it. Or,
Correct.
It's not worth going to the theater to go watch them. They're just like, I'll passively watch it or kind of thing. So I kind of feel sad for that. Another one that caught my interest is Death of a Unicorn. That's an A24 film.
Yep.
It's got a very interesting cast.
Yep.
Jenna Ortega is in that one, as well as I want to say, oh gosh, I can't remember. I'd have to look it up again. But Now You See Me is doing another one.
I forgot to say that.
Yeah, Now You See Me. That's the third one, correct? I actually, Formula One is the one with
Brad Pitt.
That one's going to be that one. A lot of people
They
are
finally
looking at it,
finished.
they're like, hey, it looks a lot like Maverick.
Right.
But in a car.
Yeah, they finally wrapped up production on that movie. They were shooting that movie for about 2 years. The film cost about $300 million. How's it gonna do? Who knows? Could be a fun film. But that's a big budget for that film, man.
Yeah. And of course, the only one that I watched the trailer on, guys, I'm not going to go see this one, but I just have to mention it because I thought it was very funny, which is The Cleaner.
Oh, okay. Well, Daisy Ridley.
Daisy Ridley's pulling out this
Our
movie.
favorite.
Yeah, and it's just, if you guys haven't seen the trailer for it, I encourage you to watch it and then read the comments down below if you're looking
boy.
for a good laugh, because they are ripping her a new one for that. And I feel kind of bad for her, but at the same time, I feel like her agent needs to get her some different roles.
So, the first film that I'm going to be actively watching in theater, Accountant 2. With Ben Affleck, John Barenthal, they're both going to be coming back. I want to see how really they expound upon this world that they have with these characters here. I really want to see how they implement John Barenthal a lot more into the story, because if you have watched The Accountant, it's really forced. Most of the storyline is forced upon Ben Affleck to carry the film all the way through. And then Barenthal is in the film, but he's not super prevalent until the end, where it is revealed eventually that they are brothers. So I want to see if Barenthal is going to be in this film a lot more, maybe them working together to complete a specific mission. That would be awesome. Mission Impossible 8. This will more than likely be the last Mission Impossible movie that I do watch. Especially if they try to do Mission Impossible 9 and 10. or if they try to do Mission Impossible without Tom Cruise. We're just kind of getting into that realm of Fast and Furious with Mission Impossible. Well, Kage didn't watch it, but I know that me and Buttons, we definitely watched Mission Impossible together. We had our thoughts on that. While not a bad film, just missed it as far as the storyline for me. Well acted, some tense scenes, good action, but didn't care for the AI narrative. Felt like they were just writing for the times. The villain also didn't seem like that much of a villain. Not a bad actor, but it just didn't have the weight that it needed to watching a Mission Impossible film. So Mission Impossible 8, we will see if they can correct those issues there and if it can be a good film. Mission Impossible Fallout's one of my favorite Mission Impossibles, along with obviously Mission Impossible 1. Mission Impossible 2 is pretty good as well. And I liked Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol. But Fallout definitely seemed like it breathed a new breath of air into the franchise, even with it being the 6th film once that hit. But then 7 kind of was like, not terrible, but not the best. So yes, Mission Impossible 8 in May. That will be our first summer blockbuster, I believe. And I don't mean based off what it's going to perform at the box office because it costs $400 million to make this movie. So I just think it's going to have a lot of attention focused on it.
Right.
28 years later, as Kage stated, that's going to be another big one. This could be an event film. Funny enough, I did a weekly this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, go watch that. Talking about how Danny Boyle is going to be coming back for the 3rd film after The Bone Temple, which is going to be releasing in January. So we have Danny Boyle for 28 years later. We have Nia DaCosta for 28 years later, Bone Temple. And then we have 28 years later, which is going to be the 3rd in the trilogy, with Danny Boyle coming back to be the director and conclude everything. So go watch that weekly, and you're getting that news once again here. That is going to be a film that I think everybody at this table is going to be watching 28 years later.
Absolutely.
But no
$60
28
million.
decades later.
I know, right? That'd be
come later,
next.
man. You guys missed it. You guys missed it.
I know.
Yeah,
Real
so,
opportunity.
So sad that when you're watching the trailer, I love how they reference it, like, first it was 28 days, then it was 28 weeks, and then it, like,
now
they originally had plans to do 28 months, and that one fell through, so it's all like
Skip that.
weeks, and just skip that and go
just
to
go
years.
years.
Yeah.
28 centuries later. Whoa. Anyway,
They're in space.
they're in space. It's gonna be like, what was
Yo.
that shit? Is that Jason X?
Yeah.
Jason.
Whatever.
Oh,
what a
he's
silly,
frozen in
what a
space,
silly
floating outside
film.
the window of the
Yeah,
ship.
what a silly film. Anyway, so we have 28 years later there. I wonder if there's anything in June that I'm missing before 28 years later, but I don't know.
So there was a couple of ones that I did
June?
forget. No, not June. They're doing the Karate Kid Legends.
I heard a
where
lot of
they're-
people are excited about that.
Well, because they're bringing in the Cobra Kai show to team it together, and they're bringing back Jackie Chan from the
That one could be a sleeper.
reboot that they did.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are excited about that, though, in
I
particular.
actually am a
and
little
I heard a lot
excited
of good
about
things
it,
about
yeah.
Cobra Kai. Haven't watched it. I'm not really into the Karate Kid thing, but I have heard positive things about that, and I think I'm glad you brought that up because I think that could be a big one.
It could.
Not
yeah.
necessarily that we're all excited for, but nonetheless, a decent movie that does well overall. So 28 years later, then we have July, Jurassic World Rebirth. I'll be watching that. Following that, about a week and a half later, we have Superman. James Gunn's Superman, his first entry
I have a dog now.
into DC, and Crypto is going to be in there. Hook, line, and sinker. Take your family. And then after that, 2 weeks later, we have the Fantastic Four, First Steps. And this is akin to DC Studios with Marvel. You can argue who's in better position right now, but this is going to be like Superman for Marvel going into this next phase because Fantastic Four is going to be very intricate when it comes to Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. So those are going to be some huge films in the month of July. A little bit after that, I don't know if Buttons brought it up. I'm not going to be watching it, but I know that Black Phone has a sequel.
Oh,
That's going to be happening. Conjuring is going to be happening as well.
those are 2 movies.
I think those are this year, yeah. So you're going to have those as well. And I've talked about this on the weekly as well. I do think Avatar Fire and Ash is going to be the first Avatar I go watch in theater. There's something about this fire element. Seems like it's a different type of intensity, no pun intended. So it's got me fairly interested.
That's at the end
I wonder
of
if there's
the year.
something that I'm missing in November and October. I know I'm going to watch Friday Night at Freddy's because Why not? That comes out in December.
That's just going to be a fun film.
Yeah,
You're
that's
not
just
gonna
a fun
watch
film.
Snow White?
Oh, that's March, I believe. That's March. You know, this companion movie actually has me mildly interested.
Oh yeah, Companion. I have this.
And then I saw a trailer for this film called Presence.
Yep, I also that was
Soderbergh
also
and
on
Copa
my-
working on that. I
Kage might be interested in one that's a horror called The Woman in the Yard.
I did
So,
see something about that as well. Kage,
Yeah.
look that up in your free time.
Yeah, I watched the trailer for it.
That
I
might be
feel like
interesting.
it's like right up your alley there.
And yeah, I think it's like for the Presence, by the way, this is a Neon film. So these are the same people that did Anorta, and they also did Longlegs. So they're kind of like a baby A24 if I had to describe them. I think it's David Koper Kep, however you say his name. Don't mean to butcher that. But yeah,
Release
Soderbergh
date
is
March
doing that,
28th.
and David Kep wrote Presence. So I believe that's a film that's coming out in January as well, and it might be flying under the radar. It's definitely going to be a suspense horror film out there, ladies and gentlemen, for this month. So something to look for, but that's the gist of what I've got for this year. We'll talk more in the next episode, more in detail about 2025. Because, like I said, we all kind of threw our picks in there, some overlay, but there may be a couple in the fall that we missed there. So we're definitely going to take a look into that moving forward. But I think overall, that's our idea as far as what we're looking for and what we're excited for 2025. Anybody else got something they want to add?
I mean, I'll just say this, and there's a ton of movies coming out, and you know, as I mentioned, I have a whole long list that doesn't even cover the entire year. I mean, so if there's something for everybody out there, I mean, I think, you know, we kind of touched on, as Neff mentioned, you know, the ones that we're a little bit more excited for. But I mean, it is such a long list, and there literally is going to be movies that I myself know will just be like, oh, I need to watch that trailer, because there's so many different types of movies out there that you're just going to be like, I can't keep them all straight. Like, there's so many different options.
Yeah, you're getting overloaded.
Yeah, you really do. Like, me just looking at the list, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Oh yeah, no. Oh yeah, what about that one? Maybe that one will be good. I mean, it's just a wide.
And this is just movies, ladies and gents. We're not even talking shows that are going to be hitting this year.
Exactly. I
And
have a
they're
whole
already
other list
going.
for shows.
Exactly. Kage, you got anything to add, sir?
All right now, 2025 is looking to be kind of a wild card for me.
I'm thinking 2025 might undershoot 2024. Because in 2024, there was a definitive, like, top 5 for me. And I don't have a definitive
Yeah,
top
I think
5
that's
here.
fair to say.
I only have, like, 2 movies where I'm like, oh, gotta see that. Have to see it, right? 2024, I can name you 5 off the rip.
Yeah,
Like,
I
you know what
agree. I think I agree with
This
that.
is kind of scary.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I do want to give a thanks to Buttons to pointing out Woman in the Yard. I'm kind of reading about it as we were talking about it a bit. It's piqued my interest. It's made by from Blumhouse Pictures, and they've made quite a few things that
know
I've
them.
enjoyed.
Oh, by the way, how could I forget, not to cut you off, Saw 11 this year.
All right, here we
And,
go.
in.
and
They got 'em
Ballerina,
again.
Ballerina's finally set to
Dude,
come
how did
out.
I forget?
You forgot
No
Ballerina.
way.
So, I mean,
Thank you. I knew I forgot something. How can I forget Ballerina? Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, Ballerina is set in between John Wick 3 and 4, and we will get a cameo from the Baba Yaga himself. So, yes, that's going to be good. Ballerina is on my list. Thank you, Buttons. Wow.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming because you're sifting through everything. Like, there's
Ballerina's
so
another
much.
one that was supposed to come out last year. That's probably why I forgot.
Oh, I had like 3 just at the top of my list of movies that were set from, you know, they were supposed to come
Glad you
out. Like
brought
I
that
mentioned, Mickey 17 was supposed to come out last
Yeah,
year
yeah.
also. So I mean, there's a lot of movies that, you know, they keep saying, oh, because of the writer's strike, you know, these movies get pushed out.
And
these
on
shows
top of
get
that, we've
pushed
had
out.
movies pushed
And-
back. Batman Part 2
Right.
coming out in 2027 now.
That's what I'm saying. Like between them saying writers and actors strike and you know, them wanting to go back and reshoot things because they're not testing well, or they just don't. The studios aren't liking how you know, it's coming out.
Yeah.
And obviously, the amount of time that it takes to do special effects.
Correct.
So trying to keep a budget small, having to reshoot things, like this is how we're getting these over bloated budgets on a lot of these like heavy action
And speaking of that,
intense films.
yeah, we're going to close it out with this because that's a good point, which goes into my next point. Captain America, Brave New World, $400 million movie coming out in February. Get your popcorn bucket, though. With that being said, this is Neff signing off with Kage and Buttons. I'll help them out with that outro there. Please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 500 subscriptions and then 1,000 subscriptions. And then we're going to continue on from there. So, yes, please subscribe if you're listening and you enjoyed this content. Ring the bell for notifications so you can keep getting these cool discussions from us, okay? When we do these roundtables, we're really throwing around ideas of what everybody thinks, so it's really a cool open discussion. We definitely want to get some comments from you as well. Please engage on what you think is going to be exciting for you in particular in 2025 and what you think the grade for 2025 will be. We did have a very nuanced discussion on this, so a lot of information there. Also, share with a friend. Let them know to subscribe as well and ring the bell for notifications. Helps us out a lot. With all that being said, it's everyone here at the Popcorn Square signing off. Later.
Be safe.